The question is, will international companies be able to get in and do major construction projects in Australia, or will Australian companies be doing them under an Albanese administration?
And welcome back to The Flow, and it's 2022 and we begin our look as we run towards a federal election at some of the key issues, and one of them is going to be the performance of Anthony Albanese. I have Rikki Lambert with me. Welcome to 2022, Rikki.
Thanks, Wayne. It's good to be back, had a refreshing break, and it's an exciting year for me as a politics junkie. We've got two state elections and a federal election in our Flow family.
We certainly do. Let's have a look at the federal election, and today, no one left behind in Labor blueprint for better future. The words of Anthony Albanese. Judith Sloan in The Australian has also taken a look at his commentary, and it appears that we've got the first real pitch and electoral campaigning from Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, look, it's been a theme from the last year and a half where Labor's talked about a number of funds they were going to create to rebuild or reconstruct Australia, taking a sort of post-war narrative along on the ride. But one of the major factors that's happened is we've had very low immigration because of the COVID measures, and as Judith Sloan looks into in The Australian today, do we really want to go back to that big Australia, big immigration approach? And that brings down the question, well, what are we going to do on the skills front? If we can't bring people in to fill the jobs, we've got to skill Australians up to do them.
And certainly the package that Anthony Albanese has begun with is to attack the coalition on the lack of skills and training. He says for his part that 85,000 fewer people are in apprenticeships and traineeships in the Liberal and National government than when they first were elected, say, 6 years earlier. So has he got a point there that this is where the problem lies as to why we can't get a workforce out there?
Well, I've been saying on the morning show throughout last year, Wayne, this is fertile territory for Labor, not only in terms of skills and giving young Australians and those who don't have enough work or any work, giving them jobs, but also Australian manufacturing. Now, Labor likes to break this down as we want to be a nation that builds things again, but I think that will have strong resonance with the Australian people if they can prosecute that argument well. But the question is, will international companies be able to get in and do major construction projects in Australia, or will Australian companies be doing them under an Albanese administration?
And whether they receive the funding or whether or not our free trade agreements are more complicated when the Albanese government, if it was to be elected. Let's take a look at no one being left behind. Is that going to be the strategy, the headline, that there's a feeling that under COVID-19 people have been left behind? And is that going to be a poison chalice too for Anthony Albanese, given that a number of the unions, a number of workers within unions have been very strongly advocate against vaccination, and many of the construction workers have protested in the streets of Melbourne over the likely problems that they were going to have if they were told that they had to be vaccinated. Are these going to be issues that Mr Albanese might be leaving certain group of people behind that could be very vocal and they could well have been his route-based supporters?
Well, it's one of those emotive slogans you hear in election campaigns, no one left behind. It's a classic sort of left-of-centre narrative, and I think those that feel left behind will be attracted to that label. But I feel like the Albanese administration, if it comes in, the Labor Party won't be too worried about that small number of people that haven't got vaccination simply because they feel like, well, the majority of Australians are with us on this. I mean, there are other people that will be left behind under an Albanese administration who are maybe right-of-centre voters, or we remember the super tax and the other things that were attacking retirees and their investments. They were very concerned about the Shorten administration if it had come in. So there may be losers under a Labor plan, but they'll use those emotive slogans to pretend they're there for everyone.
Well, according to Mr Albanese, he says that cheap renewable power will be part of the process of building Australia again, but he's making those announcements while on the road in Queensland, where it appears that there is an increase of coal-based power in order to power the rest of Australia.
Well, talking to South Australia's Energy Minister yesterday, he was thumping the renewable energy drum, but South Australia may be pushing out about 60% wind in the last 12 months, but the national grid is about 65% brown and black coal. So the reality is, Western Australia aside, the majority of Australia's energy is coal-based, and Mr Albanese is going to have to play it carefully talking up renewables when all of those coastal seats in Queensland with huge coal resources are going to be key battleground seats.
They are key battlegrounds. Will Mr Albanese retain the rank and file amongst the nurses and those in the construction industry over the vaccination issues? Or will he be looking at a new group of people? Skills and training. Is he looking at the Middle Australia again and saying that the Labor Party will build before this as part of his program if he wins this next election? We'll be covering it further here. Thanks, Rikki.